What's going on, Commanders fans? Welcome back into another show of Believe in Commanders. It's your boy, Anthony Armstrong. I got my guy, Brian Murphy, all the way down there in Atlanta, Georgia, hanging out at the schoolhouse. Guess because he's there all year.
That's
It don't
right.
stop over there. It don't stop over there. Always learning, always educating, and teaching the youth our future of America. What's going on, Brian Murphy? How you doing, my man?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, you should. I really believe you should learn something new every day, even if it's something small, even if it's about somebody. I think you should learn something new every day. So I'm trying to do that. I need to focus. That's why I'm in the school actually doing it. But I'm good. We're getting to summer, which means hot weather, training camps, all that good stuff. But things are good here. How is it in Texas?
Things are great. The weather is good. It's that pre-summer weather, so it's 80,
Hmm.
85, not quite in the 90s. We know in July and August we're going to have another, triple digit streak of just hot weather. I should not
Yep.
triple digit streak, a double digit streak of triple digit weather. Let me clarify. I don't want
Yeah,
people to
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's just going to be 100 days of just straight hell
That would be
coming from
record
the sky.
breaking.
That would be a record. I would be inside, to say the least. But no, it's gonna get hotter, and I know that. But the weather is nice, man. Kids are enjoying being outside, running around, getting some fresh air. Yeah, so vitamin. I almost said vitamin C. I think what do you get from the sun? Vitamin D.
D, I believe.
I
Yeah.
think it's vitamin D. So we're getting some of that, man. We're soaking all that stuff in, connecting with nature. It's gonna be a fun summer. It's gonna be a fun summer in Ashburn as well because OTAs are on their way. They're underway right now. It's OTA season or session phase 3 is what they're
Hmm.
calling it. And this is different than whenever I was, running around out there. Phase 3 now includes that you can wear helmets and you can do some football activities. You can play, some 7-on-7. You can do some team drills. You can actually install the offense and the defense. And we'll talk about that later on in the show. We're going to hear from the head coach. We'll hear what head coach Ron Rivera said. He's not on the show this week. We
Join us
tried. He had to
whenever,
put his back
Coach.
in. It's always open. Always open. Somebody send this and tag Ron. Let him know that he is able to make it onto this show. But Brian, he's gonna tell us about Bet Online. That is our sponsor for the show and all our shows. We appreciate those guys over there at betonline.ag. Brian Murphy, tell them all about it.
Yeah, I realized this weekend watching the PGA Championship that we were in such a sweet spot for sports. I know we're missing football as far as games, but obviously training camp and all that good stuff is coming up. But we've got basketball, we got hockey, we got baseball, we got soccer, all of that. And you can bet on all of it, all the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports and info for the NBA playoffs, for NHL playoffs, for MLB, like I said. It's all there at betonline.ag. It's your sports intel headquarters this season as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs. Like I mentioned, basketball, baseball, hockey, golf, all the way to UFC and boxing. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games. So you can check that out as well. Lay down a couple bets, play a couple games yourself right there from your own home. So grab your computer, your laptop, your tablet, whatever it is, and get into the action today. Head on over to the website, betonline.ag. Use our code BELIEVE, BLEAV. It's for first-time users only, but on your first deposit, you get a 50% welcome bonus. So head to BetOnline, where the game starts. And I know
It is where. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know that you're looking to have Cam Rogers on soon and talk a little bit of betting. He's our Believe betting guru. So excited to always hear what he has to say. But there's a lot of fun stuff that you can check out there at BetOnline.
It really is a lot of fun stuff. I was going to jump in and say they had a banner come across it. Your welcome bonus is up to $1,000. So you put in $2K, you're going to get $1,000 back. You can also jump in and play that Money Way giveaway. Floyd Mayweather, the champ. I saw an Instagram video. My man has like 30 cars, man. All black, Ferraris, Porsches, Rolls Royces. There wasn't a Honda or Toyota in sight, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure he's got a pretty good collection of cars. Either way, he has a contest on betonline.ag that you'd be able to check out as well. And they have free contests too, which is awesome. I think that makes
Yep.
hey, why not? Hey, let me throw my name in the hat and see what happens. So slide on over there to betonline.ag using our code BELIEVE, BLEAV. Now let's get talking some football action. We're on the field in Ashburn. Eric Bieniemy's out there coaching. There's a lot of talk about what he's been doing, the impact he's had on that offense. I'd love to hear more. I would love to hear from guys on the team about what he's brought in. Ron Rivera has been speaking as well, and Brian has a little bit of information about what Ron has said. What have you heard from Ron Rivera recently speaking to the media, Brian?
Yeah, we were recording on Wednesday, May 24th. So this was right after he spoke, I think, for the first time since the team, kind of gathered together. So it was kind of a big deal. The first, off the top, we were kind of talking about it briefly. Armani Rogers went down with what looks to be a torn Achilles. So that's a bummer. He played really well last year before I think he got banged up last year. So that'll be a tough one on a kind of, I think, an interesting tight end room. I think they could add somebody, or they should maybe. So that was a tough blow. You hate to see injuries in non-contact and all that. And then so he was just kind of go ahead.
I was thinking about that tight end room. You really don't have outside of John Bates. I guess you don't really have a true tight end. Logan Thomas converted from quarterback. I mean, obviously, yes, that was like 10 years ago, but converted from quarterback. Cole Turner, I want to say, is more of a receiver type build. Armani Rogers, former quarterback, moving over as well, I think. So you just got a lot of guys that are changing positions, but sucks to see he's injured. And I wonder if that has to do with playing ball now a little bit earlier than normal. Than versus what it was in the past, but not knocking the new program. But go ahead, proceed.
Yeah, so I think just the main questions about getting the team together. I think there were a lot of questions about Eric Bieniemy and his impact, and I want to talk about that a little bit later from a player's perspective. I want to ask you how it changes when you have a new coach coming in. So I want to get to that. But one of the big things that he discussed was Chase Young not being there, Montez Sweat not being there. I'm sure if you're a big time Commanders fan, you are well aware of those guys going into contract years. New deals are coming up for those guys, whether it be with the Commanders or not. They are not there. It's voluntary. They don't have to be there. Make that very clear. But of course, Ron Rivera was asked because Charles Leno Jr. was not there as well. You're starting left tackle, presumably. So he was asked about all those guys. He said, obviously, along the lines, he wants everybody there, but they're not required to be there. But I saw that he had been texting at least with Chase Young, which made me feel a little bit at ease. Not that I was really worried, but it's always good to know that they're still in communication. And he made it sound like, this is from John Keim. He said, from what I've gotten in text messages, this is Ron Rivera speaking, in conversations, he gets it, talking about Chase Young. He understands it. You want to look at a great example. Look what Duran did. Guys that produce for us, we want to keep them around. I believe Chase has adapted to it nicely. He's working hard. I'll be excited to see him when he has to be here. So Ron Rivera doesn't seem overly worried, so I don't think fans should be overly worried. And I like that he addressed it. And obviously he was going to get asked that, but he took it head on. And I think that's the biggest story about the guys that aren't there right now. I want to get into that a little bit later, but your initial thoughts on anything that Ron Rivera said or anything that you've seen kind of tweeted out about OTAs?
Well, we'll start with Chase Young not being there, Montez Sweat not being there. Once again, voluntary. It's voluntary. So on that side of it, you shouldn't really worry about it. Now, from a team side, being on the field, having been in those locker rooms, I think it's good when you see some of your leaders show up. And I did see reports. I've got to give a little shout out to Rio Robinson. He had on his YouTube, he was mentioning, somebody else had mentioned it, but he was passing it down the line, that Montez Sweat was actually in the building. He just didn't practice. He didn't go on the field.
Nice.
All right. So he was there. He was physically there. And if they're doing install and they're meeting with coaches and players, and I'm glad he's there soaking in that information and showing that he's there. Chase, from what I'm hearing, Chase wasn't there. Once again, not knocking him. It's voluntary. I would still like to see you in the building. I know that you're playing for, they didn't pick up your 5th-year option. And so now you're like, well, let me make sure I don't, get on the field too early. The way that the season ended for Chase, with it taking a little bit longer to get the confidence to get back out there. I think for me and maybe a lot of other people in the building, they would have loved to see him show up and get to work in the offseason. give you more opportunities to see that knee is back to where you want it to be. Doing football type moves, not having to wait until training camp, not having to wait until that first week of the preseason to actually go against a different opponent, rather than not, yes, in the offseason it's not padded. You're not hitting, but you still have to have the technique to take on the block, to shed a block, to get in some pass rushes and read and react off of some things. So I would love to see Chase Young on the field as soon as possible. In June, they have mandatory OTAs. If he doesn't show up then, we can
Then we got a story. Yeah.
we can go back over this. But right now, let's not worry about it. As long as the guy shows up in shape, you have to trust that these guys are going to be professionals. And maybe he feels like there's more he can gain from working out outside of the building rather than being in the building.
Yeah, I don't really remember if Deron Payne was there, but I don't think it matters. And I saw a brief tweet. I think it was Scott Pioli, who was big front office member for the Patriots and Chiefs, obviously two successful franchises. And he even said, we're 3.5 months away from real football. I mean, if, like you said, we get to June and July and he's not there, then it's an issue. But right now, we're so far from real football. Not that these aren't important, but you don't necessarily need everybody out there, especially when it's voluntary. So that kind of lands me. I want to ask you a couple of these questions. I had thrown it up there for a second, but whether you're a veteran, whether you're a rookie, kind of group it all together as a player, what are you hoping to gain from being at the OTAs? Like, why are guys that don't have to be there, why are they there? What are they looking to gather from this time period, from your experience and maybe from, other guys that you've talked to?
Number one, you miss it. You have been away from football since what, mid January, early January. It's been a long time since you've actually gotten on the field, run around with your boys, got to throw the ball around, run some plays. There's a different feeling whenever you are in football practice and you're in that environment. I visited back in December, hearing the whistles go off and the guys breaking down and going to different areas. I got chills. Hell, I almost stole a helmet and tried to get in a receiver drill. Okay. Just being out there on the field gives you goosebumps. And being able to get back out to OTAs, number one, you get to reconnect with your players. Well, I guess that would be number two. Get to reconnect with your teammates. With them actually working football now, you get to take the install that you're learning. There we go. You get to take the install that you're learning up in the classroom, and you're getting to apply it to the field. Immediately apply it to the field. There's nothing better than actually getting out there, run around. So for me, you're going to get a better understanding of what you're asked to do offensively, defensively. You're getting that coaching earlier. I heard that Chris Rodriguez was getting rode a bit by Eric Bieniemy, and frankly, it's better to get your welcome to the NFL moment in June, in May, in voluntary OTAs. Yeah. You can learn what type of tempo Eric Bieniemy wants. You can learn what type of production and accountability that he's going to have. Learn that now. You don't want to wait until training camp, because when you get in training camp and you're waiting to figure out, hey, rookie, you got to go a lot faster. We need you to be better. They're not going to make it. It's like drinking through a fire hose. So OTAs is big about learning, trying to get up to speed, get back to what you finished with at the end of the year, quickly knock off the rust, get on the same page with some guys, and start to turn some heads. I mean, you think about the young fella, Kaz Allen. He's already turning heads. It's been a couple weeks in Ashburn. Now coaches can hey, let's put him over here. Let's do this. So this is just a way to stack on good days after good days, and hopefully it carries into training camp.
Yeah, for me, again, using a school analogy, it kind of seems like it's like syllabus week, right? Like, you're not going to have any tests. There's not anything that really matters, but it's setting the foundation. And not that it doesn't matter, but I mean, like, you're not getting grades that week, that kind of thing. But this is going to set the foundation for the rest of the year, for the rest of your season. And you're right. You rather figure out your mistakes when you got shorts on, as opposed to getting popped in the mouth or letting your teammate get popped in the mouth because you're not in the right spot come September. So that's great to hear. You already mentioned Eric Bieniemy. I think that's been one of the bigger things that people have been looking out for. What is the difference that he brings? He obviously is the offensive coordinator, but he also has the assistant head coach title. I think I saw a tweet where Ron Rivera is like, that's not just a title. That is something that he is taking and running with. It sounds like he's kind of tweaked practice a little bit. It sounds like not just for the offense, but kind of how they structure things. My question, again, for you, for a former player, and I don't know if you ever experienced this, but what is it like as a player going in there whether you be a rookie coming into a new system with a new coach, obviously, or if you're a veteran and you've got a new coach coming in, what does that look like? How do you get used to a new voice? Like you said, how do you get used to his tempo, and what is that? How does that kind of change what OTAs look like?
Well, if you imagine that you have a dry erase board and everything you've learned from your previous coach, or if you want to use a school analogy, from your previous teacher or professor, is written on this board, right? When you get a new person, new coach, new teacher come in there, erase everything. The one thing that's going to hold true is that you got to make sure you work hard, you got to do your job, but everything that this coach is giving you is now what needs to be on that board. Don't go in there and be like, oh well, I can't even remember the old offensive coordinator's name. I'm
Scott
so sorry,
Turner.
Scott Turner.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
like, well, Scott had us doing this, and then EB is going to look at you and say, well, Scott ain't here. Okay, I'm asking you to do this. I'm not asking you to do what you did in the past. If what you did in the past worked, then maybe the OC would be here. And and that's how real it can be. I mean, you're hearing how EB's going in there, really bringing the energy. I'm reading from a Pro Football Talk article, and you mentioned it. He said, Ron Rivera says, I don't believe you give the assistant head coach title and it's gratuitous. Rivera said, it's not just a title, it's a working title. He's doing those things and he's getting those responsibilities, and I think he relishes it. He's one of those guys who very few people are going to outwork. He mentioned as well, it's been exciting. EB is a high energy guy, a high impact guy. He doesn't pull any punches. He's very direct with the players. And listening to a podcast, hearing how Ron Rivera talks to players, it makes me think about how LaShawn McCoy was like, oh, well, EB doesn't know how to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
He talks to you in a very direct way. It's a way that I can say wouldn't translate to corporate America.
Yeah.
And let me not just say it's just EB. This is a lot of coaches just in sports. Okay, that doesn't necessarily transition to corporate America. And to be a rookie and really just anybody coming in and having somebody talk to you in a different tone, that takes a little bit of getting used to. You just got to know that's how he's going to coach you, and you got to understand that comes with just his level of accountability that he wants to hold you to. And if you understand that your coach is trying to put you in the best situation to be successful, then you can accept that coaching, even if it's tough coaching. Hell, I played under Bill Parcells, Tony Sperano, some of the toughest guys. So I'm well aware, and I'm fine with how EB is going to go out there and coach these guys and push them. So I'm up. I'm glad that the people are up for the challenge. If you want to be around, you're going to do things his way.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then there's 31 other teams that you are more than willing and able to go and try out for and see if they can pick up the phone for you. Chances are it's going to be fairly similar in another organization as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that the Commanders have needed. I think Ron Rivera is a little more passive. I think he can get fiery, but I think this is a totally different thing, almost like a good cop,
Mm-hmm.
bad cop, which I think can be a benefit for the coaching staff and for the players moving forward. But yeah, it sounds like Eric Bieniemy. It's not just the rookies. Like he's going to get on to Terry McLaurin. He's going to get on to Jahan Dot. He's going to get on to any of these guys if they're not doing what he's asking them to do. And for a guy that's, got 2 Super Bowl rings and worked with arguably the best quarterback ever and one of the best head coaches ever, you better listen because it's way better than what has been happening in Ashburn and the nation's capital. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. I think I even saw that they were a little slow getting out of the huddle, and I think that was a knock on Scott Turner getting the play in and that sort of thing last year. And he got onto him. He said essentially, again, not in the most delicate of language, but he said we have X amount of time. We got to get the play in. We got to get it off. And it sounded like they responded to it well. Sam Howell got it in a little bit faster and got the play off a little bit quicker. So it's nice to see these tangible. Like it's one thing to say like Eric Bieniemy is going to come in and bring all this stuff, and then it's nice to see already in day 1 and day 2, week 1 of the full team being together, these things already being changed. That's encouraging for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, hearing about it makes me feel good and feel chilled. I've read about how Phil Knight would get on Jordan and Pippen, and dog custom, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, as a rookie, and you coming in, you're like, oh my God, he's talking to Michael Jordan like that, right? Now, if you imagine a rookie receiver, rookie running back, oh my God, he's talking to Terry McLaurin like that. He's talking to, but it's a thing where it's like I'm gonna hold our best player to the highest level of accountability. And you can expect that I'm going to hold a practice squad or an undrafted free agent to the highest level of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
It's consistency between the coaches. And frankly, players recognize it and see it. If a coach is gonna be lenient on Brian, hey Brian, hey man, you dropped that ball, man. It's okay though. Don't worry about it. Hey, just come on back and we'll be all good. But then on somebody else, they're dog cussing them and they're wailing into them. Those two things don't match. That dog
Mm-hmm.
don't hunt. Okay,
Yeah.
those two things will not go together. I want my coaches to walk in and be tough on everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're a parent, you're a dad. Like, there's a time that you have to be tough on your kids, but you also know that you can hug them close and you can pat them on the head and say, "Hey, it's gonna be okay. Look, this is what you did wrong. Here's what I wanted you to do. Let's find a way to correct it, and then the next time it won't happen again."
Yeah.
And
And I
that's what EB's expecting out of his players. He's going to coach them to the highest level. He's going to get the most out of them, and if they don't, then they won't be around. Easy
yeah.
as that.
And I know that there are egos. I think you got to have a bit of an ego to be successful, but it's kind of like parenting. Like you said, like Eric Bieniemy is not doing this just to be hard on guys and be a tough SOB.
Yeah,
He knows what it takes to be successful, and he wants his guys to be successful too. One thing I'm realizing, and Ron Rivera seems very open about how he's kind of letting Eric Bieniemy come in, and it's almost as if he is the head coach over the offense. I think that's really encouraging. I don't know about you, because I think sometimes, old dogs, it's hard to teach them new tricks. A veteran head coach like Ron Rivera, it'd be very easy for him to want to keep control and want to run things his own way. But it sounds like he realizes my offense has been lacking. I let Jack Del Rio and we've combined to put together a solid defense. I've been missing that offense, and it sounds like, at least right now, at least in May, he's willing to let Eric Bieniemy take over. And I think that's refreshing.
yeah,
It kind of reminds me, obviously, Sean McVay was a brand new head coach, but I think his first or second year, he brought in Wade Phillips as his
yeah,
defensive coordinator, right? So Sean McVay, obviously a really great offensive mind, but he let Wade Phillips just kind of handle the defense. And I think that's kind of what Ron Rivera is doing here. He's like, I know the defense. I know that side of it. I played it for years. I've coached it for years. Now I've got a guy that can handle the other side of it. I think that's huge.
mhm,
And if he can really, like, not be totally hands off, you got to be involved. But if he can let Eric Bieniemy run it and be successful, I think that could set up for a really fun year.
yeah, 100%. That's trust. That's trust, and that's also it's delegation. It's understanding. As the head coach, I mean, his it's not his job to go stir all the pots and all the dishes and make everything. He just needs to make sure everything is presented well and gets out there onto the table. If he can trust that he's got a chef on the offensive side that's going to be able to get that thing done, and all he got to do is taste test at the end. I mean, obviously, I haven't had lunch yet, so I'm a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
hungry. So you can
Let's wrap
apologize
this
for
up.
all the
Come on, come
food
on.
analogies, right? But I think it's smart. I really do. I mean, you saw what it was like having an inexperienced offensive coordinator. You gave Scott Turner a chance to get in there and to kind of do his thing, and didn't get the results that you were expecting. Now you have a guy who frankly should be a head coach in this league. But you're giving him an opportunity to be the head coach of the offense. I think it's smart. I expect this offense to play at a high level. A lot of the just mental errors, the lapses that you saw from teams of previous years in Washington, I don't think that's going to be here. And
Yeah,
if you do see it, you won't see that player on the field that much longer. I
yeah,
promise you that much. Willing
sure.
to, I guarantee that 100%, 100%.
So one of the things I want to wrap up on, I have at least I realized it as the team took the field, and so I want to give you a second to think of it while I give you mine. What's your biggest question mark with OTA starting? Like, what are you most going to be checking Twitter for to hear about this player or this position group, that kind of thing? I want to give you a second to think about it if you have somebody in mind. But for me, the position group, the thing that I realized I have a huge question mark about is the offensive line. I wouldn't say that I'm worried. I would just say I have a question mark, because I realized when they rolled out the starters today, obviously Charles Leno wasn't there. So we know we'll pencil him in. So Cornelius Lucas was there. I'm not counting that. But it looks like the other four guys are going to be four different starters than this time last year. You got Sadiq Charles starting at left guard to start the week. It sounds like Nick Gates starting at center. Sam Cosmi moving from tackle. Sounds like he's going to at least start as a guard. at right guard, and then Andrew Wiley as your right tackle. That's 4 different spots that you're switching up on the offensive line. At first, I was like, that's interesting. And obviously, there's going to take some cohesion. There's going to take some time to get it together. But then I realized, I looked back, and Washington gave up 2.8 sacks per year last year, which was good enough or bad enough, depending on how you look at it, for bottom third of the league. And maybe they need 4 new guys, and maybe they need a difference in there. But I'm interested to see how that goes. You got a couple guys that are moving positions. You got a couple guys that maybe have found new positions. So I'm just curious how that goes. And I know it's going to be a long time before they're actually hitting a defensive line and actually protecting Sam Howell. But color
Yeah.
me, just mark me down for putting a little asterisk to watch the offensive line this summer.
I like that one though. I like that. That's a group that is going to. I think that offensive line group is going to determine where this team goes this season. If you're
Mm-hmm.
not able to keep Sam Howell upright, then we'll be picking in the top 10 next year,
Yep.
easy. Okay, you probably have to see some Jacoby Brissett in there. If you don't keep Sam Howell upright, and that's not because Sam ain't playing well, probably because he's gonna get his head knocked off.
Exactly.
So I'm with you. Having 4 new guys, and frankly 5 since Charles Leno's not there, I don't have no problem with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you're going to see week in and week out, and each time OTAs roll around, and there's out of the 10 practices that they have in this phase, 3 of them are going to be open to the media. I'm interested to see if you get the same lineup on the offensive line in all 3 of those media practices so that they
Sure.
can show one thing. But I know that they are going to be shuffling guys in and out. You're going to see
Yeah.
some Stromberg getting some work. You're going to see Braden Daniels get some work. Um, and I think this is what's even bigger about playing ball now,
Yeah.
because even though the offensive line isn't necessarily getting physical with people, they're learning together.
Yeah.
That's a unit that has to learn 5 at a time. Like the guard has to be able to talk to the center and to the
Right.
tackle and say, "Hey, this is what we're working together. Double team right here up to the mic." If you don't have that communication, you're going to have to get somebody out of there. So I'm not overly stressed about it now, but it is something to pay attention to. I do like that. The one that I kind of have a couple. I kind of
Yeah.
have a
And it
couple
doesn't
of
have to be
positions
okay. I
that
was gonna
I'm
say it doesn't
looking
have to
at.
be a position group. It could be one guy. I'm just curious what you're gonna be looking at
Sure,
as tweets roll in from OTAs and all that.
sure. One is I'm interested to see what they're going to do on that back end, and kind of really I'm including the linebackers in this as well, because you pick up Quan Martin, and once again I was reading that he's got the start at nickel, and you had
Mm,
St. Juste and Fuller on the outside, and they were working in Emmanuel Forbes. So I feel like that's maybe their initial, type of look. See what we can get with that. Are they going to live in a nickel package throughout the year? So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of experimenting going on that back end. So I'm interested to see how many combinations you get there. How they're going to work in Forbes. Is he going to get in there more? Are you going to find yourself in putting a safety at backer? And then trying to find a way to get Forbes on. There's a lot of DBs to work with, so I'm interested to watch that position. And going back to what we started the show with, no Chase Young, no Montez Sweat. I want to see how the defensive line is going to be showing up. Are you going to get some extra plays out of your rookies, out of those guys, James Smith Williams? Those guys. You got an opportunity. Yes, we know Chase Young is Chase Young. Yes, we know Montez Sweat is Montez Sweat. But anytime you get a rep against the ones and you can put something good on tape, you're gonna put a little penny in your piggy bank,
yeah.
because the coaches are watching that. They know what Montez can do. They know what Chase Young can do. But if you are able to build up your bank account of good plays to where this team can say, well, maybe we got something in this guy. Maybe we got something in our rookie out of Clemson.
Yep.
That's going to help them make a decision on what they want to do in the future. So, hey, you don't want people to get cut, but you don't want to be the one that gets cut either. And I'm not saying they're going to cut Chase or those guys, but the defensive line, players on the defensive line have a chance to actually make some plays, put some good impressions in front of the coaches, and see if that's going to help them in training camp and potentially help them make this team. So I'm interested to see how that rotation is going to work as well.
Yeah, me too. And all this stuff, obviously, we'll be looking at quarterbacks and how Sam Howell does. And I'm sure every pass he throws is going to be dissected and intersected and all of that. We're going to get breakdowns of all of that. So there's all that good stuff. But yeah, those are some good under the radar things that aren't going to be quite in the front of the news when you read about Commanders OTA. So I'm excited to see how all that shakes out. I saw that Sam Howell he threw a pick not too long ago, or at some point today, and Eric Bieniemy got on him for not chasing it down afterwards. So I love to hear that. He's getting on his quarterback already. That's just kind of how Eric Bieniemy runs it, and I love to hear it. So we'll keep on it. I know we'll be covering it all summer long, but it's nice, like you said, that there's football, that the guys are getting back together, that we have actual on-field stuff to talk about. It's a nice break from all the nonsense and the ownership stuff and all that. But I'm just glad we're talking about guys playing football for a change.
Yes, indeed. I think that will be the common play until the sale is official. I think that's going to happen later on in the summer. But all in all, we got football.
Yes,
we got some football to pay attention to. Can't watch none of it, but it's good to talk about. It's good to see the media folks out there giving us updates out there on the Twitter Spaces. So appreciate y'all for doing that. All y'all people up in the DC area, the DMV, holding it down for us. Real quick recap before we get up out of here. Make sure you guys head over to betonline.ag. Check out our sponsor. Go. I'm pulled up the line. I think got all these baseball games on here that you can check out. I'm a Texas Rangers fan, so
and they're solid. They're going to be right there with the Astros all year long.
I hope they do something, man. It was back in my days in Washington that they were playing the World Series and doing all that stuff. So I remember doing interviews with my Rangers cap on.
Yeah, there you go. Ron Washington was the manager, and he is in Atlanta now as the third base coach, and he is beloved. We love Wash in Atlanta now.
Yeah. See, he's a good guy. But head over there to Bet Online, folks. We're getting a little off track. Use our code BLEAV. Make yourself a little futures bet if you'd like to. Talk about the Commanders. I think they're over under still is at 6.5. We'll try to get Cam Rogers on the show to see just exactly what he thinks we're going to happen with some of these futures as well. You can also check us out on all those major streaming platforms, folks. We got the Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify. We got YouTube. You can check us out on the Believe Network YouTube and check out all the selection of the Believe Network shows. We got all the teams. We got them all covered. We got an athlete and we got a host. So you get to hear from some of your favorites from some of your favorite teams. But obviously you're here for the Commanders. So for Brian Murphy, I'm Anthony Armstrong. This has been Believe in Commanders. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Y'all be safe. Have a good one.
See ya.